Every Bunny Welcome wall hanger. We're using some napkins I got off eBay. I have this piece of a cupboard that I got at the Habitat for Humanity restore. It was only $2. And then this little bunny was part of a 2-pack from Dollar Tree. And then I traced the bunny on cardboard and set it aside. So if I want to use the shape again, I can just cut it out using the template. I'm also going to be using some Mod Podge. I went ahead and painted the bunny. I believe that's oatmeal. Oh, I guess I'm showing you the cupboard again. Sorry about that. So the bunny is painted oatmeal because I thought I ordered white paint, and when it came, it was Castle, which is light gray. And when I checked, I did in fact order Castle chalk paint. So I accidentally navigated away from the white paint purchase page and purchased the gray. So I did do the Every Bunny Welcome on my Cricut, and there I was making sure that the bunny and the words fit, and they do because I measured it beforehand. I wish the words were a tiny bit bigger. I did measure it, but I'm always worried it's going to be too big. But I think at this point I need to worry about it being too small. So it took me a little bit to get this transfer tape on. The grid helps, so if it went down and stuck but the grid wasn't even, then I took it off and tried it again. And then of course it takes me a while to get the backing off. I flip it upside down and pull the backing off the transfer tape, and that's supposed to be the easiest way of doing it. I went ahead and set that off to the side while I applied some Mod Podge to the bunny. Now the napkin is kind of, I don't want to say it's dark, but it's got a lot of color on it. So I don't think the color of the bunny is going to factor in as far as the color of the napkin goes in the finished product. So I'm going to head and just spraying the words with the finishing spray. And then I took the bunny and put it on my tripod, my ring light. Got it underneath the ceiling fan and got it dried off. So once it was dried off, I separated the floral part of the napkin from the backing, and I think there was actually 2 extra plies, so 3 plies altogether. And then my favorite thing to do, I am going to use my Hippo heat press and iron the napkin onto the Mod Podged bunny shape. We do that because it reactivates something. And I love this Hippo heat press. It fits in my hand really well. I can control it well. And it has 3 super hot settings. Afterwards, I just kind of rip the napkin away and then use some sandpaper to get it even with the edge, and I love how that turns out. I will do that like 99.9% of the time. However, the other 0.1% I will burn, just like you see here. And I did that because of the ears. I didn't feel like messing around with the ears, so I just set them on fire, and it came out perfect. I sanded it a little bit, but not much. Now I'm sanding that cupboard front, which is like my white blank. And I sanded a little bit on the back of the bunny as well, so they'll stick together. I'm using some wood glue. It'll be wood glue and hot glue. Long-term hold and immediate hold. And guys, this is so easy. A Dollar Tree bunny, a napkin, and a piece of a cupboard from the Habitat for Humanity store. I got these ribbons from Dollar Tree just because they were new and they had words, and I'd never tried ribbons like that before. So I'm going to put one up near the bunny's ears, and there we have it, a better look at the final reveal. Nose Kiss Bunnies hanging tags. The tags are from Dollar Tree. The bunnies came off a previous sign that I worked on, and I'll be using my black dot marker from Funsil's, as well as some scrap fabric and some pink scrap ribbon, and some pink ribbon from Dollar Tree. I'm starting off by removing the border on both sides. They're exactly the same. This border was pretty easy to remove using my Cricut Pokey tool and just a palette, like a paint palette. And the paper was also really easy to take off. So I went ahead and removed the border and the paper from both tags and flipped it over. And now I'm applying a coat of light gray paint on the back of this one, which is now the front. I set that aside to dry, and I thought about using the border, so I painted the border as well, but I do end up not using it. For now, I'm going to put this old pink Shabby Chic vinyl on the second tag, and I'm just going to cover up the side where I pulled the paper off, and then use one of the knives I got at Dollar Tree to trim off the edges. And then I come in with a sanding block afterwards. That's one of my favorite ways to remove the edges. So 2 perfect tags. Now I'm taking the pink dot marker and I'm coloring the beads. And while this has a cool result, I'm not sure I will recommend it because it shredded the top of the marker a little bit. So you want a smoother surface, because I was running it over the top of the bead where the hole was, and so that kind of ate into the top part of the marker. So I made this stencil in Cricut, and oh my goodness, it took forever. Like, I had to cut out so much here. I weeded the letters, and then I used the transfer tape to put the stencil part down, which would normally be what you're pulling up. Only this time we're putting it down. And I had a little bunny for the A to make the hole in the A, and I couldn't find it. So I actually just kind of patchworked some vinyl in there to get the A's looking normal. And then I come in with the dot marker, and I actually tried this off camera with the different stencils to make sure it works on an adhesive stencil, not on the regular stencils that you just hold down. So I went top to bottom, pulled the color down, and then I went back over them and darkened them up a little bit, each individual letter, and then I'm pulling off the stencil. My first dot marker reveal, and gosh, turned out pretty good, huh? Since it's washable, I just came in with the baby wipe and got that the top and bottom there. Now I couldn't help myself. Everyone, this is a sneak peek at the Funsil chalk marker. I was attempting to make the edges more crisp, but it ended up looking more like an outline. So I went with it and did each letter. And I kind of went back and forth, like doing the edges and wiping it off. But in the end, I just quit. Like, there's a little bit of smudgy, and I could come in with paint, but I didn't. But you could if you wanted to, if you chose to recreate this. So these little bunnies, one I had to flip over and remove the glue so they would be facing each other. And I just used a combination of Dollar Tree super glue and hot glue. And then I made my little darning needle with some floral wire and pulled those painted beads onto the hanging cord. Now I'm taking that scrap ribbon and making a bow tie for our boy bunny. And then I have this really pretty sheer fabric. And don't mind that stapler, it was just there to hold the bunny head down because it was lifting up a bit. But I'm putting the sheer ribbon shoelace bow on the bunny's ears, so it's like a hair bow. And then I have this really narrow pink ribbon. I'll do another shoelace bow and put that on top. And don't they look pretty? So now we're going to glue the two tags together using super glue and hot glue, and I just use that stick there as a guide to where I wanted it to go. Ended up not using those sticks. Those were the border on the old signs. To finish the project, I used some super glue to set the hanging cords down into, and then that was vertical, and then horizontally I put down a bead of hot glue and put a little piece of fabric on top, and it came out so pretty, and you'll get a better look at it in the final reveal. Pretty in Pink Easter Blessings Bunny. We'll be using this dot marker in pink, Magic Fly acrylic paint in 2 different kinds of pink, the Dollar Tree beads that used to be in the heart shape, and then Dollar Tree circle sign, and Dollar Tree window cling or window decal. Starting with, I got a head start on the beads, and it took a little bit, but it's a very efficient way to color them, and I'm not rubbing it over the hole in the bead like I was in the previous project, so it actually came out pretty good without tearing up the tip of the marker there. You don't have to do this, but the beads were kind of loose, so I cut off the end and then curled up the sharp piece into itself, so there was no sharp ends. I mixed together those 2 pink paints, but when I started applying it, it was like, oh, that's just kind of dark, and I knew it was going to be behind there's lots of clear spots on the window clings, so rather than waiting for the dark pink to dry and then coming in and repainting it, I just got in there when it was still damp, and just with just pale pink, see, I kind of spiraled it on there and then spread it up and then left it right on the parchment paper and set it aside to dry. And that's the nice thing about the parchment paper, is you can just leave it. However, sometimes you'll get these little marks, these little things on the edges, and that's just because the paint on the parchment paper dried too, and it was stuck to your sign. I do apologize for the jumpiness of the video. I had some issues with recording at a lower than normal speed, and this was as fast as I could get it. I have no idea what happened, but it corrects itself, but it's towards the end. Anyways, so just going with the flow here. I thought the bunny was going to be the star of the show. I know Brenda from Rustic and Lace takes her window clings and fussy cuts them, gets rid of most of the plastic on the edges. However, I am not as patient as Brenda, and so I just kind of trimmed where it seemed like there was a lot, like between the ears, between the legs, and where the flowers and the head are. And then when I was happy with it, I played around with the placement. I realized there's a lot of dead space, so I peeled off some florals in the Easter Blessings sentiment. However, the sentiment was circled with a floral wreath that just wasn't going to fit. But I did like the idea of having the sentiment on there. So I trimmed up the wreath and made it more of like a little curved border instead. I left everything where it was in the dry fit and then turned it over in place and applied some Mod Podge. Then with the bunny, I just, I patted it, kind of patted and kind of wiped it down with a dry paper towel to make sure there was no extra Mod Podge underneath. Then with the bunny, I left it in place and I did the bottom with the Mod Podge and then folded it back down and did the rest of it in the same way and tapped it and wiped it with the paper towel. I was getting a little bit impatient here. I did apply some Mod Podge to the actual sign, and of course there was some spillover that I had to wipe down. So I went back to applying it on the window cling and then folding it down or flipping it over. And I was happy with the placement because you can move it around a little bit, and I actually did. Once I was happy with the placement, I attached the beads, but I did so off camera because, again, I was just having weird camera issues. So I just used my hot glue, wood glue method to get the beads down there. I did my bow the same way I always do. I put some pale ribbon in the middle there, applied the finishing spray, and better look at the final reveal. Continuing with the jars and flowers theme, this is a wood flower picks in a wood jar or faux wood jar. So again, all Dollar Tree supplies, 3 wood picks, $1 each, the jars $1, and the stickers. So 3, 4, it's around $5 if you wanted to recreate it. I created from my stash, so it didn't cost me anything. And you could always use handwriting instead of stickers, or if you have a Cricut or anything like that. So getting the prices sticker off the back, which now becomes the front. And I always like to use sandpaper on the adhesive part. It just seems to do a good job of getting that sticky part out and preparing it for painting. So sandpaper, I used a baby wipe to wash the whole back down, and then using the same paint as the previous project. Our celery looking oatmeal. Set that aside to dry and brought out the wood picks, and I decided on some shabby chic colors. So we're doing blue, pink, and orange. Even though I kind of wanted peach, I liked this orange that I had. So I did them just a plain even coat. I think it was only 1 coat each. And then I came in with some yellow for the middle. And I just painted the top. I didn't try to get in the in between, because it's a raised swirl. So I didn't try and get like down into it, just on top to keep it nice and clean and not messy and gloppy. I have these colored baker's twine, and I made little finger bows for each flower. And so when they were dry, I did a finger bow at the top of the stick there, and different color finger bow for each different color flower. Here I'm just figuring out how I want to put these in, and I decided on this configuration. Even though originally I wanted to stagger it, I decided this looked the best. I'm just holding them down, putting a line of hot glue on the back of the stem, and then pressing it down onto the jar, like so. I'm going to grab some of my regular twine there, the tan and white twine. I'm just going to wrap a little bit around the middle to hold them in place. You don't really have to do that if you don't want to. And then I decided on this tag. I was going to use a heart tag, but I haven't used any of these metal tags before, so painted it the same color with the plan to distress the edges to make it pop while it was on the jar. And while I was distressing, I decided to distress everything. We're talking the edges of the jar, the flowers, and the tag. But you know what? I might have overdone it with the tag, but I think the flowers really look good with that little bit of distress on them. They're just a little bit too bright and fake looking for my liking. And I think the distressing just really did the trick. Okay, so we're finishing up this project. I'm going to decide. I'm going to decide what color, and lowercase or uppercase as far as these letter stickers go. I end up choosing brown and blue, and I used lowercase and uppercase. So it's a little bit wonky, but I like it. Because I wasn't going to be able to get all lowercase, and I wasn't going to be able to get all blue. So I just did a combination of everything. So I'm going to put some Mod Podge on there, keep those stickers down, hot glue under the tag to make it go across and over where the picks are glued to the jar. Hide the messy. And there you have it. Better look at the final reveal. Okay, so following the jars and flowers theme, we have this tulip store hanging. All the supplies are from Dollar Tree with the exception of a jar from my collection, but Dollar Tree has some pretty cool jars that you could use if you wanted. Even the zip tie is from Dollar Tree. And I'm showing you the white ones, but I do use some black ones, but those are from Dollar Tree as well. I've had the Valentine jar sign since last year, but they have always seemed to have jar-shaped signs. I'm using 2 different kinds of tulips just to mix things up, as well as some greenery. And there's a piece of sandpaper that I recently purchased at Dollar Tree, and I'm using that after getting some water on the sticker, on the price sticker, and that seems to work for me. Once that dried off a little bit, I came in with my oatmeal chalk paint. I love this oatmeal chalk paint. It dries and it looks like celery, and I always want to call it celery, but it's really named oatmeal, and I just love the color of it. You can mix different colors with it. It gets some really cool results. So this time I'm coming in with some moss chalk paint, another one of my favorites, and I'm using the moss like I would use like black on white for a shadow in a jar. But I wanted to get some green in there because of the spring theme. So I just kind of played around till I had some shapes that, were kind of randomly looking like a jar. And we were going for more of a folksy type paint job. I wasn't trying to make it look realistic. And the moss comes out really nice with the jar. I'm glad I decided to use moss instead of gray or black. So then I remembered I needed the top of the jar for the front, so I take it off and I don't show it, but I had to take a break and put on a Band-Aid because that friggin' silver thing cut me, and I should have been more careful. Here I poked some holes on either side of the jar after I laying the jar in the middle of the jar. Laying the real jar on top of the MDF sign jar. And once I had those little pokey holes, I took my drill and drilled a hole, and that will be on either side of the top of the jar, the lip of the jar. For now, though, I do want to pretty up the back, because since this is intended to be a door hanging, our doors have windows, and so just in case the back might be seen, I have this old Shabby chic, I guess it's vinyl. I think I got it to be shelf liner like super long time ago, but for now it's going to be the back of my sign. And I like it because the yellowy greenish color kind of matches the celery color created by the oatmeal paint. After smoothing that down, I used my pokey tool again and just poked through the main holes on the front to get through the vinyl. And then I'm going to use my Dollar Tree super glue to attach the metal top of the jar. I like to use the super glue when metal is involved. I could put some hot glue on there, but the super glue is going to work just fine. It's not going to be moving around that much. Now I tried the white zip tie and realized it just wasn't big enough or thick enough. So I'm using the black tie. It's thicker, it seems more durable. I didn't like the way the jar was sitting though, so I do get a little bit of super glue and I put it right on the jar, like so. For now, the jar has some ribbon inside to hide the stems, but I do switch that out with some Spanish moss, and you will see that during the final reveal. For now, I'm just going to take this scarf. Instead of regular ribbon, I decided to use this scarf and just tied it in a bow. and I think it looks cool and old-fashioned. Farm fresh eggs in a basket. I'm using some chalk couture to spell the word farm fresh. Also Dollar Tree eggs from last year, some chalk couture paste, and a piece of a basket that I purchased many years ago. So this is how I chose to paint my eggs to dull down the color. You could also put them in a carton and paint the top, let it dry, paint the bottom. Or you could even make a hole in the bottom with a glue gun nozzle and then put them on a skewer and paint them like that. But this worked. It was a little messy, but the tape held it down enough that I didn't get my fingerprints all over them. So I started drying them, and then I thought, I can do other things while they dry. So let's just give them some time. And so I picked up the whole piece of parchment paper and laid it aside. Now I'm going to trim out the chalk couture. Oh, there's Kitty again. This is the second time. He never does that. I guess he really wanted Mama's attention. But yes, these chalk couture stencils are made to be trimmed, and they trim easily. And now I'm preparing the little garden sign. I'm fixing up the back of it. I got the hanging ribbon off, and I was really hoping this was going to go off without a hitch. And at first I wasn't too sure, but then ta-da! It came off with very little adhesive on the back. I give it a quick little sand, and it was ready for some paint. I wanted a rustic coat, so I just made kind of watery concoction with some chalk couture white paste and a little bit of water. And then I proceeded to cover the back of the sign. And again, it's just what I call a rustic coat. So I used like a medium-sized paintbrush. And I gave it a few coats, and then I dried it with my heat dryer or my heat gun. Now I'm going to go over it with this wax, this white wax. I actually got it for painting garden statues, but it works well with chalk couture because you want that waxy background. And chalk couture sells its own clear paste, but I had the white paste, so I use that. First time using this transfer, so we do need to fuzz it. I just use a hand towel here, and I fuzz it twice. Then I place it. I took a little while to make sure it was in a good place, and then used some tape just to ensure it didn't move. And I mean, the word farm came out so perfect. I actually had to rough it up afterwards to match the word fresh that didn't come out so perfect. And that's just because I was sort of hodgepodging it, and this is one of the older stencils, you can't see through it, and so the letters weren't super straight like the word farm. But I did my best here, and I noticed that when you go over it a second time, you definitely don't get the full darkness that you did previous. So it definitely could have benefited from washing in between, but I was okay with it because I want it to be a rustic sign anyway. Now I picked up the eggs in the middle like that, you see, and I have like one finger and my thumb inside to hold it as I dab some white paint. Again, white paint made from the chalk couture white paste and a little bit of water. Now I had one of those situations where the camera was off and it should be on, and on and it should be off. So I'm going to show you real quick what I did that didn't get recorded. And I have this big roll of chicken wire, and I just used my jewelry wire cutter to trim off a piece of the chicken wire. And then I used a pair of jewelry pliers to bend it like that, so it made a little hook, and then I hooked that onto the frame of the basket. I folded it to get it to the size and shape of the roundness of the basket, and then I used my trimmers again to trim off the extra and bent everything into the basket. The eggs, I just kind of strategically placed them so you couldn't see parts that were scratched or weren't totally covered with white. And that came out really well. And then the sign, I actually chalked on some decoration at the top to make it look a little better. Final look at the final reveal. Whimsical carrot truck sign. This one was so fun to make, and it's a nod to Emily, who likes to tell stories about her crafts. So this craft definitely tells a whimsical little story. I'm using this Valentine's Day truck that I purchased from Dollar Tree and was in my stash. And you'll notice I don't break down the prices for this 5 under 5 because I always craft from my stash. But each project would probably cost you a few dollars, depending on what you have in your stash. Okay, so I have stencils I believe I purchased from Michael's like a really long time ago. And I'm going over the Dollar Tree truck with some of this oatmeal, and I'm trying to save some of the writing on the truck. So I'm covering up what's obviously not Easter, which was the Valentine part, but I'm leaving that little bit about, I think it says free delivery, and I'm leaving some of the lines that bordered the text. So I decided a little bunny was going to be riding along in the truck, like maybe the baby bunny went for the drive with his daddy bunny or mama bunny. So he's hanging out the window, and I just trimmed the head off the little bunny as much as it pained me. And then I glued it right at the edge of the window on the door part of the truck. Now, I'm going to come in with my little stencil and just the very corner of this foam brush, and I'm going to stencil in the word carrots, just carrots. I decided not to get too super fancy with it because it's a little bit time consuming with this kind of stencil. So I had to wipe the paint off and then come back in and wipe the paint off. So it was a bit of a process, but an easy process nonetheless. And you could use a pouncer or a dabber, or even cut off a piece of a kitchen sponge. Any kind of sponge will work. Once I got that word on there and it was dry, I flipped it over and I tried to get the last little bit of E6000 glue out of there, and then a whole bunch of hot glue, and it actually fits so nicely. Now, there's a reason I'm putting it on the side like this, because he's driving down the road, but he forgot to close the back of the truck, and all the carrots are falling out and they're landing on the road. So we need room to show that. So I'm taking those little orange foam carrots. I'm doing the same thing I did in the previous project. I'm drawing the brown lines on with the brown Fun Still chalk marker to make it look like they'd just been pulled out of the ground and thrown in the truck and now are falling on the road. I did the same for each carrot, just a bunch of lines and blobs and stuff, just to make it less neon orange. And once I thought it looked pretty cool, like the carrots were falling and landing, and I just kind of did it randomly. So once I was happy with how it looked, I think I had one carrot left, or all the carrots, I don't remember. So I came back in and did some touching up, and you'll get a better look at the final reveal. Eggs in a bucket. I'm using these green, blue, and pink twine wrapped eggs, along with some saved florals that I pulled out of other projects. And then I've had these bunny ear headbands for a while, so I'm going to use them. This is all to create a little bouquet. I'm putting some of these window clings on the bucket with the jot glue stick, and then I have the eggs that I got at an antique store last year. Not sure why an antique store was selling eggs, but there you have it. So here's the little bucket. I believe it's white tin or metal, and I'm using this styrofoam because that's the one I saw when I was looking for it. It's just as easy to work with as the other styrofoam. It's just, a little bit different of density. But I put some of those naturally colored shreds to hold the styrofoam in the bucket. And then I took out 2 egg picks from each package. So 2 blue, 2 pink, 2 green. And then I did the same colors from the antique store bag. 2 green, 2 blue, and 2 pink. So I'm choosing some nice colorful chalk markers here. And we're going to decorate the colored eggs with these markers. I had no idea if this would turn out, but it did. Look at how nice and bright that white is. I just did like squiggly lines and circles and dots and dashes. Here I am shaking the yellow to get it started, pressing down on the nib, and then pushing up and down a bunch of times until the color got into the nib. And then right away I can use it to decorate the egg. And I did mostly just the tops of the egg because you're not going to see the bottoms. And there, aren't they? Didn't they come out pretty? And I did handle them a little bit, so some of the lines and dots I had to redo. But I like it a little faded in areas, kind of like with chalk couture with the chalk paste, so I wasn't mad. Now what I should have done is set them in like a little egg carton to like fully dry, but I just kind of left them, and I was going to use Mod Podge on them and it turned out awful, so I used that Krylon spray you saw there. And now the florals are a little bit too short for how I wanted them to be in the bucket. So I took a skewer and some floral tape and I wrapped the whole stem of the floral and then all the way down the skewer to give them a longer stem. And I did that for almost all of them. And I lost the footage of me actually creating the bucket and putting those window clings on there, but I just used the Jot glue stick and rubbed it with a paper towel. Now I'm finishing up the arrangement with the bunny ears. I cut them off the band, put some glue on a skewer, and shoved the skewer into the bunny ear. And then I fastened some sheer ribbon around it. And then I decided to create a little shoelace bow out of some bigger twine, just for a little bit of embellishment. And there you have it. You can see the window cling on the bucket, and you can see all the color. Better look at the final reveal. Spring Chalk Couture birds. So there's a little stand that I got from Dollar Tree as a frame. We have the Chalk Couture single packets, Chalk Couture squeegee, Chalk Couture Scandi birds that I got on sale. I think Scandi or Scandinavian. And then, of course, these wood shapes that I got from Amazon. And I'm showing you the size of the one that I'll be using for this project. I put a base coat of clear spray paint, and now I'm going to figure out which birds are going to look best in the space provided. I was needing the teal color there because I definitely want to use that color. Teal is my favorite color in clothing and wall colors and things like that, so only natural that I would go ahead and get it from Chalk Couture. So this is the first time it's being used, so I trimmed it off the main page and fuzzed it on a microfiber cloth that I have. The teal chalk paste was nice and slippery and went on no problem. I didn't have to add water or anything like that. So I just spent a little time getting some even coverage. And I definitely need some more squeegees because I had to take a break in between and get the squeegee cleaned off. But there's our first reveal, and I love it. Absolutely love it. The color, the bird, the direction it's facing, everything. This, I think, is copper, like a copper shimmer that I got from one of the house transfer sheets. And so if you haven't guessed it already, the stencil, Chuckature stencil, or I guess we could call it the silkscreen stencil, silkscreen transfer, is what this project is all about. So we went from a paint stencil to the Cricut cutout, and now we're chalking. So again, it came out wonderful. I love it. I love the two colors together. It's lovely. So now I just had to figure out how to finish it off. And bows are usually a good choice for embellishment. So I decided to go with that. But this ribbon was pretty wide. I want to say maybe 1.5 inches, maybe 2. But I did go ahead and use it to make a awareness shape bow, like I usually do. Make the shape, scrunch it together with the twine, and just tie it nice and tight in the back, and then embellish the middle sometimes, but glue it on, putting glue in the back. So I do have the bow ready, but I want to get it on the stand first here. So this was just a Dollar Tree frame from the frame section, and I saw other creators using it as a stand, and I'm always thinking about how to stand things up, so I thought this was perfect. Now, I definitely mess around with this bow. I am not happy with it after I get it up there, but I do mess around with it until I get happy with it. For right now, I thought it was done, and then oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. My cats were fighting. One is in timeout right now. So yes, I thought I was finished with this project, and then when I looked at it, I thought it just needs something else, more of an embellishment. And I decided on a necklace for it. So I pulled out some different sized beads and watered down some paint in colors similar to what the chalk was on the image on the birds. So this is just like, oh, look at that. I just totally lost that bead. I had to get up, go all the way around my desk, find the bead. Oh, there we go. Get some more color on it. So yeah, the blue I thought was a nice springy color, and it was a close match to the teal that's already on there. So now, similar to what you would call a dry fit when you're figuring stuff out, I was figuring out how to do the beads here. And what I did was cut off a piece of floral wire and use it like you would use a needle. So I just cut off the piece of floral wire, fold it in half, and then put the twine in the looped part of it, and then just threaded my beads on in the chosen pattern. Now, it would be nice to have my hot glue gun working right about now, but that glue gun always conks out. It's a great gun, but it always conks out. So I decided to prop the knot on the string off on the top there and then just glue it down. And now our birds have a necklace, and they are prettier. Final reveal coming up. Pizza Pan Bunny. We're going to use this 2022 calendar image for March. We have nautical rope, pink ribbons, pizza pan. The pan and the calendar came from Dollar Tree, and I don't remember where the ribbon came from Amazon probably. Always thought that was such a sweet image, and I finally get to use it. I made sure the pizza pan was nice and clean. You can use a baby wipe or some rubbing alcohol and paper towel. Now, I used Mod Podge earlier in this video and didn't put the top back on, and wow, it got super, super thick just over a day or two, and I ended up not being able to use it. Here I'm cutting out a background out of Dollar Tree wallpaper. I decided I wasn't in the mood for painting this day, and so it was pretty easy to trim the wallpaper for the shape of the pizza pan, because I know I'm going to go back in afterwards with the nautical rope, and that's going to hide any imperfections in the cut. Took the bunny image and just used my fingernail to mark where it needed to be trimmed. And when I put it down, I thought, wow, it's covering up like the whole background. After I just, went through putting the background on there, and I liked the background and wanted to show. So I did a bit of a fussy cut on the bunny image, and this way you could see more of the background, and I was happier with it. Here I am trying to get some Mod Podge out, and it's not coming out. I actually put a brush in it, and the brush just like stood in the sludge. So plan B was to use this school glue, clear glue, but just on the outside edges, because I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. And it did wrinkle up a bit, and I rubbed it with some no, not paper towel. I think I used a cloth, just like an old rag. And I actually went in off camera as well and tried ironing it to get some of the wrinkles out. So there's a few wrinkles in there, but it's not too bad, all things considered. I'm going ahead and making a bow using the 2 loops and cinching them together with the zip tie. And then I'm taking the other ribbon, making the awareness shape, cinching it together, and using another zip tie. And then I just put that second bow on top of the 2 loops there, and I position it and fluff it and trim it. Then I use some hot glue to apply a piece of ribbon around the middle to hide the zip ties. And then I actually came in with hot glue and attached that. Then I flipped it over, and I used super glue and hot glue on a piece of nautical rope that I chose to use as a hanging rope. And then after I did that, I came back in again, which I usually do, with some more hot glue and a little piece of ribbon. You could use a piece of fabric, a piece of tape, a piece of paper, piece of canvas, something just to help hold it down. Now, I thought it needed a little bit more, and rather than make a swag out of my perfectly fine faux florals, I went through my stash of already used florals, and since the stems are really short, what I did was the first floral, I lifted the bow and glued it under the bow, and then the next floral, I lifted the floral and glued it under that floral. So everything got glued underneath something, so it wasn't totally apparent that it was a bunch of hodgepodge pieces. And then, did you know that you could curl up those onion grass pieces? I just used my fingernail, and curled it like you would curl curling ribbon, fluffing the bow, and a better look at the final reveal. Bye.